1940, a Navy recruiting officer came to sign people up at the camp. He was Chief Yeoman C.E. Ely, with many years in service. The stripes on his arm and his ratings were in gold, which meant he had been a good boy for a long time. I thought that his uniform was the prettiest I had ever seen. A sailor with him had on a white uniform with red stripes. I thought it was right pretty, but the gold was best. I could see myself in a uniform like that in all the great ports of the world, New York City, San Francisco, London, and all the exotic places of the Far East where the most beautiful girls swarmed around only to have their hearts broken when I sailed away. With dreams of this kind, I got in line. When the chief talked to me, I told him I was only 16 years old. He said, "We'll be starting the new kiddie cruises sometime in December. I can come back for you then." A kiddie cruise meant you were in the Navy from age 17 to 21, then you were discharged. I made every preparation to enlist. First, I went back home for Mom and Dad to sign the papers. I gave different people for references regarding my character as I prepared to get into the service. In my exuberance, I figured I would be dressed up like the chief in no time at all. Of course, you had to be a good boy to get all those gold stripes, and I stood about as much chance of doing that as a mouse had in a cat house. I was sad when I realized that I couldn't get those stripes right away. Of the 21 of us trying to get in the Navy that day, 3 made it. We were sent by train from Jacksonville, Florida, to Macon, Georgia. On December 2nd, 1940, Lieutenant W.R. Johnson, U.S.N., gave us a little speech that impressed me greatly, and then swore us in. I think every one of us was ready to explode with joy. We were in the Navy. At the swearing-in, I was standing in the back row of recruits near 5 steps. In my excitement, I didn't notice the brush and can of floor polish indicating the recently polished condition of the floor. As I turned to go, I slipped and fell, hitting my left knee on all 5 steps, and ending at the bottom with my knee and pride hurt. The doctor gave me a cursory exam, wrote it in my record, and sent me on my way. Up to that point, Macon was the greatest distance I had been from home. Now I was headed on a train for the naval operating base in Norfolk, Virginia, and I was as excited as a new bride. We saw people everywhere and always stared at Navy officers. We had meals in the dining car. The countryside flew by. I counted telegraph poles as they flashed by, lost count, and started over. The world outside the window was composed of farms, cattle, and barns with advertisements of all kinds painted on them. Burma shave signs on parallel roads sped by faster than I could read them. It was a new and wondrous way to live. On top of everything else, I was drawing $21 a month for all this fun. There was only one thing I needed now: girls, girls, girls. They were everywhere, dressed in fine clothes, blushing when our eyes met, then looking the other way. I felt like a spring bee in the first flower petal of the year. My first impression of Norfolk, Virginia, was how dirty it was. Coming in on the railroad, we could see old newspapers and trash against the fences and in the street gutters. Run-down buildings had sleepy-looking people, both men and women, in the doorway sitting or lying around with empty bottles everywhere. I can still remember the smell going through Norfolk and out to the Navy base. A young man like myself, out of the backwoods, wasn't used to the smell of warehouses, stored fruit, and exhaust fumes. We arrived at the naval operating base at night. We were assigned to a building and bunk. When we went in and turned on the lights, roaches went scampering every which way. That didn't stop us from going to bed, as we were tired from riding on the train. The knee that I had hurt in Macon was bothering me pretty bad. The naval base had barracks from World War I. The most impressive thing about the base was the fence around it. They had you fenced in, and other people fenced out. At the top of the fence were strings of barbed wire to keep a man in or out. The base was big and sprawling, with clean grounds and drill fields. The wooden buildings were gleaming white with fresh paint. The old brick buildings had cleaned brick walls, new caulking everywhere, and brightly polished floors. The piers had old 4-piper destroyers and 2 aircraft carriers tied up to them. One of the aircraft carriers was the USS Ranger. I was placed in a platoon ruled over by Chief Turret Captain Medic, who was back from retirement into a Navy that no longer carried his rating. He was a Chief Turret Captain, permanent appointment, USN, and he let us know it in no uncertain way. He told us we were too damn dumb to stay on the farm, let alone become sailors.